one thing I will tell you about the go-go era is that every time Dick and Harry wanted to be a fake Sangoma. And I saw a lot of people around that time being in like despondent situation, traumatized situation, mental health situation. And then they just threw themselves into Tokoza Go. I was like, girls, you know there's mental health institutions. Y'all don't have to go into the Marine to get well. So I don't know if she was part of those people, but I do know a lot of the people that went the Tokoza Gogo route were actually mentally not doing well upstairs. Allegedly, allegedly.
Welcome to an all-new episode of Looks and Wisdom Sundays with me, Oluchi B.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Looks and Wisdom Sundays with me, Oluchi B.
Please say the bird.
Hello, aka the elusive panda darling. How's everybody feeling?
We're alright. How are you?
I'm glad production's up at the back today because you guys had me iced out for the past 2 weeks. I was like, am I alone in the production? Good to have you back, T.
Hello, you know the slavery.
I know, honey, but thank you. We are still in April, and that means we are still speaking all things Christianity related. And we're looking at Christianity from a very, very specific lens. We are looking at the long-standing role of Christianity in the suffering and the marginalization of Black people in South Africa. So in the first essay that I did, we looked at the history specifically, looking at the Dutch Reformed Church, the Anglican Church, as well as the churches that were involved in the TRC that led us to the Rainbow Nation, and how that affected Black people post-apartheid, leading us into the democratic South Africa. And then last week, I spoke to Bonjo, who wrote a book called Power and Faith, and she looked at the role of the Anglican Church in politics, in power dynamics. If you guys didn't check those 2 episodes, please do before you check this one out, because today's episode, honey, is dumbity dumb. We don't have any references. We're just talking out our necks. Okay, I'm lying. We're not talking out our necks. I do have some references, but it's more of an opinion based rather than an essay or sitting down with the expert. That's why it's called a trending topic, darling. But before we move into this week's topic, actually, which is titled How Trauma Informs Religious Extremism, I just wanted to give you guys feedback. So I wanted to show you guys these 2 articles to just let you know that what we're talking about is not something that happened in the past and has stayed in the past. It's something that is still continuing today. We have people who've been oppressed from the colonial time up until 1994 when we got freedom, that are still looking for justice, that are still looking for reparations. So when we do these episodes, I want you guys to know that it's not in the past, it's currently right now. Anyway, that was just last week's recap. This week we are speaking how Black trauma actually leads people to religious extremism. And this is not an essay, it's a hard topic, so I'm not going to give you guys too much background. But I want us to look at this essay. It is actually written around the Holocaust victims. You guys know about the Jews, right? And Hitler and them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you guys want me to give you a quick history lesson? I'm not. And this article talks about how trauma is generational and can be passed from generation to generation. And it looked specifically at the Holocaust victims and how the next generation acted, and how the generation before informed how the next generation was going to act. It says here, one of the things that happened to them when they were traumatized is that the next generation was very fearful, and one of the things that it taught the next generation was control. You need to control the narrative. You need to control who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a positive or a negative?
I mean, for them, it is a positive thing.
It is a positive thing, but if you look at control from a bigger thing, it can be a negative thing as well, because you don't allow people in you're always apprehensive about strangers. You always think that someone's got one up on you,
Mm.
and you always think that someone is going to try to take away from you.
Always like very exclusive.
Exactly.
With you.
So I feel like that about Jews. I do still see the remnants of that trauma in terms of them organizing together and together only, and not letting other people in. Okay, so the second example we're going to look at when it comes to trauma is an article written about the impact of trauma on Americans. And this one talks about the fact that Americans, you guys know about slavery. We're not going to go deep into it. But it does speak about the fact that, again, all of these articles speak strongly about the fact that when people get colonized, they lose their identity, they lose their culture, they lose their sense of self, they lose their sense of belonging, they lose their community. And for Americans, when this happened to them, we're not going to debate whether the Americans came from Africa or they were already there. We're not talking about that. But a lot of them were traumatized out of the family structure. We see this in America all the time. I mean, their films actually perpetuate this down to the T. Broken down family structure, and then you see the loss of the matriarch in the family, and you see the toxic masculine. And it also talks about the fact that you see a new wave of a strong female that is informed by trauma.
The strong black
I
woman.
hate that. Don't. If you call me a strong black woman, I will stab you in the neck with a bottle. No. And it speaks about the fact that the black people in America are using the material to mask the trauma so that it appears. It appears. Dressing it up, right? Dressing it up. And another thing I wanted to speak about with regards to these two articles is my South African deduction. I just feel like we spoke about the Jews and we spoke about the Black Americans. There isn't a lot of literature written in South Africa regarding the trauma post. I mean, we're only like 30 years in. Maybe like the smart girls are writing articles about it right now, which I'm going to review later on. But in South Africa, I feel like we were traumatized similar to Americans. I don't know if it's a black thing. What do you think, T? In terms of losing culture, losing our sense of identity, losing our community, having the matriarch removed, having this toxic masculinity, and having this toxic femininity that is now sold to us as like a strong black woman. Everybody wants to be one.
I feel like I can say it has affected us way more than the Americans, or I can even say it has affected us less. Let me explain.
Okay.
By saying less, I feel like it has affected us less because we're still in our motherland in a way. So we're still in a way more connected to our roots and everything because everything is easily accessible to us.
Yeah.
They're in a country where they're not the dominant demographic.
Yeah.
In a way, they don't have that much power as well. They're just far away from home. And then I can say it affected us way more because we are colonized in our own land and our land is feminized, right? It's the motherland. And then it goes back to this huge ideology of the strong black woman because even our land is feminized in a way. I learned that colonization is like a masculine act. So it's very deep. Like from a feminist perspective, it really affected us.
Yeah. By the way, talking about, are you still going to go on?
You can continue.
I was actually studying the Jewish history, the whole history of the Jews, and the whole history of the Roman Empire. And for the life of me, I was like, but where were the females in the whole of the histories? Like literally in both the Jew history and in like the Roman history. The only time you hear about the strong, not strong, but where you hear about a female is when they're giving birth. Like with the Roman people, I can't remember the name of this female, but she had relations with the god, and then she gave birth to two sons.
Mhm.
And then even in the Jewish, there was like this divine feminine that gave birth to two sons. And then that's it. That's where it ends. You don't hear about females anywhere else in the history outside of that. The only time is, yeah, no, she gave birth, she was abused. I was like, are we living in like the masculine times?
Yes, and the times that are very heavy on erasure of
Mm.
women.
Okay. Oh, heavy, 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 heavy on that. So I just wanted to give you guys context with those two articles about the fact that trauma is not you being traumatized by your boyfriend, or you being traumatized by a work environment, or you being traumatized because trauma is generational. You get born with trauma, like literally you get born with trauma, and the trauma that affects your current life is informed by your parents and the environment that they grew up in, also you and the environment that you're growing up in. So for me to have this episode today is to tell you that all of this trauma that Black people have been enduring for the 400 years, can you believe it's been 400 years since the 1600s? Can you
Hello.
believe it? I was like, guys, if you look at the history, it's always been war, famine, we're killing, we're taking, like, Allah still, like literally the whole time. So I was like, from the 1600s, and this is the history that we told by the West. We don't know. So for how many? 400 years, Black people have been perpetually traumatized, perpetually marginalized, perpetually taken out of anything that can bring them joy or some form of happiness, up until 31 years ago in 1994. And when 1994 came, it was like, you guys are on your own. And it was like 1 + 1 = 2. You have this traumatized generation giving birth to traumatized generation. And they've been told that the church is the only solace for them. So if you now sitting on the other side of democracy and freedom, and you find yourself in a jam or in an unfavorable situation, what are you going to do, T?
Hmm.
Go
Go
to
to
the
church.
church. Exactly. You are actually going to go to the church because that's what you've been told is the antidote for your suffering. But that antidote has been part and parcel of your suffering throughout time. Throughout time. So today's episode, I just wanted to put that connection first, which leads us to our celebrity examples. So the first celebrity example that I wanted to speak about today was Gefilwe Mamote. You do know the queen, right?
How everybody does.
You do, guys. But do you remember Gefi when Gefi was Gefi Boo and not Gefi Mabote before the whole rebrand? When she was like Kanyembao Light, to quote Musaka, she was out with the yellow Lambos, posing, doing the most. Yeah, we remember that Gefi too. But the brand, what does she call herself again these days? Influencer Deluxe Gefi Boo. Influencer Deluxe Gefi Boo. So the queen actually, beginning of this year, she announced to everybody and their mamas that she was living the life that she was living before and moving over to Christianity to become saved. And I mean, I'm going to say allegedly a lot when it comes to Gefi Boo's story because I know the story from the streets. And I haven't read her book, not because I didn't want to read her book. I just don't know where to get it because I did look for it. I couldn't find it. So I was like, I don't have too much time for me to read the book and then speak about this. But so I'm going to speak about the alleged allegations. So why is Gefi a great candidate for this? Or allegedly. So number one, Gefi grew up in abstract poverty in the hood, allegedly. And then Gefi was married off or got married, allegedly, to an older man when she was still a teenager or in her early 20s. And then in the marriage, she had some children. And then she allegedly escaped, allegedly, and then started to create this version of herself that she believed she was after the trauma. So trauma at home, and then you escape, and then you find yourself and you create your own version of yourself. And then in her creating this new version of herself, she met a new guy, allegedly a doctor, allegedly. I'm not trying to get sued. And she married this guy allegedly, and they had two additional children, allegedly. And she left that marriage as well, and then she started being heavy in the streets, And this is the version of the Gefi that I know. I know Gefi from when she was married a little bit, according to the streets, to this doctor guy. And that's when I knew of her existence. And she was very, very heavy in the streets, very, very heavy, influencing. I'm very, very happy for her ascension to being influencer deluxe. I mean, the queen is in Paris, Milan, doing it big, but we're not here to talk about that. So Gefi built herself up to being the influencer deluxe, blah, blah, blah. Then move on to, was it last year when she posted that video of the alleged lobola negotiations or marriage or whatever was going on? We don't know. We're not trying to get into that. And then after that, then the cookie crumbled. It was all over the blogs that the thing was fake. And then we saw Gefi on what was that show we were watching beginning of the year? Love and Hip. It's not Love and Hip Hop.
Young Famous in Africa.
Yes, and then we saw the queen there looking good per usual. And then she told us that the marriage wasn't fake. She wanted to be part of this polygamous arrangement, but unfortunately it didn't work out for her, but she was over it. 10 to 1, now the queen is announcing that she is leaving the life behind, and she's giving her life over to God, the Christian God. And I was like, okay.
Burning the Medusa face was one of the most freeing and therapeutic things I've ever done, as one of the things of breaking some of the idols I had. It was about breaking down the idols I had unknowingly built in my heart, the very things that distracted me from fully walking with Jesus. The next time I own something luxurious, it will simply be an item, not a reflection of my identity or my purpose. My worth is found in Christ alone. I'm learning to let him shape me according to his will, not the ever-changing expectations of culture. The same culture that applauds you today can tear you down and demonize you tomorrow. But
so the only reason why I decided to add Gefi into this is for a couple of reasons. I'm not saying the girl is suffering from trauma, but as Black people, we do suffer from trauma, and we do use the church to pacify ourselves when we're going through difficult times. So I feel like it's the same thing for her. But my only thing with Gefi is that she wrote, remember those screenshots she gave us, like a million IG stories? And I'm happy that she's moving from one religious extremity to the next, because she's leaving whatever she's leaving. She doesn't want to tell us what she's leaving. The only thing that we know about what she's leaving is that she was worshiping, allegedly, the material there. She was obsessed with the material world, and whatever they had to do, they had to be feeding this God of the material world. And it worked for her because we saw her winning materialistically. You can still see the girl right now on IG. She's winning materialistically. And obviously anything that you do to an extreme will always like reach its top, and then you have to go on the pendulum, go to the bottom, and find how you're going to get to the top again. So I feel like Gefi's actually did that. The only thing I wanted to caution on Gefi's story is the fact that everybody is in entities because these entities work for them. If you subscribe to the Marine Kingdom and it's working for you, and you decide to now be part of like Boro's church, leave the people in the Marine Kingdom to enjoy whatever they were doing in the Marine Kingdom. I mean, another thing I wanted to say, which is about anybody who is part of any spiritual group, that's what's called religion, is you assign intention to anything. There's nothing wrong with the Medusa head, by the way. I did check, I did Google. There's a lot of Greek mythology around it. And if you do search even more, a lot of the different civilizations had different stories about the Medusa. Yes. There's nothing wrong with Versace as a brand. And then moving on to the next person I wanted to talk about, which is Blac Chyna. I like Blac Chyna's evolution better.
Me too.
And let me tell you why. We're not going to go into the long Blac Chyna thing, but Blac Chyna was a slave queen, and she was using whatever she was using that was working for her to amass all of this wealth, all of this fame, and all of these positions. And then 10 to 1, she was like, guys, I am transitioning. I have decided to give myself and my life and my soul to the Lord Jesus Christ via the church. I'm not saying there's anything about what I was doing before. What I'm saying is that I'm removing this tattoo that is allegedly connected to Baphomet, and I believe Baphomet is evil, so I'm taking it out for myself. I'm not saying people who have it are evil, but I was using it in this intention. And I am removing myself from alcohol. I'm getting sober. I'm removing myself from drugs. I'm removing all these surgeries. I'm doing all these things, not because they are wrong, but because for me and for my evolution that I'm doing, I don't feel like it's going where I'm going.
I just love also the fact that she didn't, like you said, bash the other stuff. She still
Exactly.
continued. She's still selling beauty products.
Yeah.
She didn't say, "Oh my God, this thing is bad."
She didn't go around bare. I was, please, Kefi, we love you so much. But I was like laughing, like, why are you gonna take one Versace shirt and burn it? Like, is this a joke? Is this a joke? Another thing that I always say, and we always speak about, is the fact that people like dressing things up instead of being internally inside. Like, they would want to see it. Like, if you're a pope, we want to see you with the whole thing, the whole gown. But the popes are out here allegedly touch kids, but
Can you talk about the
we're not getting involved.
1,800 cases, honey?
We're not going to get into that, but we here talking about trauma and how people move from this extreme to that extreme because of trauma. Oh, and then the person that I wanted to speak about is Nontle Tema. So Nontle was this big celebrity in South Africa in the early 2000s. She was the original It Girl. She was the first one to do it. And then out of the blue, she started acting erratic on Twitter. And then she started going on this Twitter rant. She was the original crash out queen, actually. She crashed out so bad. I was still very young at the time when she was crashing out. I just remember it being like a big thing, like a big pop culture thing. And I was like, I wonder what's going on. But I was never on Twitter to see what was going on. But I do remember Nontle crashed out to a point where she started losing all of these endorsements and then she disappeared into obscurity. So now the queen is talking in her 40s. And one of the things that she said, again, trauma. We are all trauma informed. Even me, I wrote the book because I was trauma informed. Even you're going to write a book because you were trauma informed. So Nontle Tema's trauma comes from, first of all, the main difference between Nontle and the two previous girlies that we did, Gefi and Black China, is the fact that Nontle didn't come from the bottom of the bottom. She already had like a celebrity mom. Her mom was Cynthia Shange. She was the first Black Miss South Africa and also represented us internationally. And a big actress, you remember her in Muvang? Or you also are a fetus?
Tandaza's mom.
Yes, her. And then her dad was also in the entertainment industry, journalist, blah blah blah. So she grew up in the entertainment industry, so she knows it. And she says her trauma comes from the fact that her family used to worship fame.
Needed to break. I come from a family that had been obsessed with the spotlight. Not necessarily obsessed. We come from it that it enslaved us.
Became your identity.
It became our identity in the household.
Yeah.
Because who I am is a reflection of him, is a reflection of my mother, because I have selected these two people as my parents to bring me on this earth. Because you choose your parents when you come on earth. But also I realized the entertainment industry is very low vibrational.
So she said her family used to worship fame and then she got into it. So she started worshiping fame herself, where being famous was the thing. She was willing to do anything to be the main girlie sitting at the top, stamping on everybody, making all of these things happen. She didn't talk about anything else outside of that, but we do know what it means when it says you're worshiping something. And so she fed into this fame demon her own self, where she marginalized her father to the back. Remember Mick Mill, Nikki, how they did Chris Brown at the BET Awards? Literally in the shadows at the back, and she was pushing this fame thing with her mom. She speaks about it. I'll link the episode, guys. You guys can watch it yourself. And again, with anything that you do to the maximum extreme of it, it's going to eat you up. So the whole thing started eating her up. Again, I'm not saying anything about these girls. All I'm saying is that we are all trauma informed. Kefi, Black China wanted the money, wanted the material, wanted the acclaim, wanted all these things, and they moved into the extreme of one end. And then when they were done with that extreme, they were like, let's go to God. I like Notle's example because she's not in the church. She has decided that she's going to do something different and focus on self-actualization. So she's reading some spiritual books. So she's trying to move into something different. And from the way she's talking, it's like she knows where she needs to go. She doesn't have all the language yet. So I look forward to seeing what Nontle is going to progress to as she gets into her 50s. And I also look forward to seeing how far Geff is going to do with the church thing. I wanted to add this last person. And this last person is Gogos Koteni. It's Gogos Koteni, right? Yes. The one you said I must do. Okay. So this was given to me lastminute.com. And obviously I didn't get to catch up on the girl. I don't know the girl from above. So do you know her? I just know she was a gogo in the streets and has been pushing her propaganda as gogo, charging people, doing all these things. Like, she was winning on that side.
Yes, the dark side of traditional medicine.
You better say allegedly, because I'm not trying to.
She said it herself. So, but allegedly.
Allegedly, exactly. So, Gogos Koteni was on the other side, which was, again, something, I don't know her life story, so I'm not going to get into that. I wanted to use Gogos Koteni for one thing and one thing only. And that is to say that victims become victimizers. I don't know the girl story, but this is what I'm trying to say by that. So Gogos Koteni was on the extreme side. What did the queen say about herself, allegedly?
She was doing the dark magic. She said it, yes.
Okay, I get it.
She'd do rituals at 3 a.m. to, make people get money, things like that.
Okay, so she admitted herself she was on the dark side. So again, it's another extreme religion. I don't know what informed the queen to get into that. But one thing I will tell you about the Gogo era is that every time Dick and Harry wanted to be a fake Sangoma. And I saw a lot of people around that time being in like despondent situation, traumatized situation, mental health situation. And then they just threw themselves into Tokoza Gogo. I was like, girls, you know there's mental health institutions. Y'all don't have to go into the Marine to get well. So I don't know if she was part of those people, but I do know a lot of the people that went the Tokoza Gogo route were actually mentally not doing well upstairs. Allegedly. But this was my observation. So I don't know anything about Gogos Koti, but any queen that's finessing is always my favorite queen. So the darkness, so she was practicing that for a very long time. The only thing I know about Gogos Koteni is that at one point she actually had a big festival at Constitutional Hill. And I wanted to go sell my books there. And then she was charging 2,000 Rand for a stall. And I was like, no, girl, not coming. And then, so she was heavy on the traditional healing side of things, using, I don't want to say African spirituality because I don't believe in African spirituality. I just believe in spirituality and how you grow up. That community informs how you actually connect to the divine. But anyway, that's me. So Gogos Koteni abruptly announced that she was living her Gogo life as a traditional healer and she was moving into Christianity, honey. Roll the clip. The ass is assing, right? I love this white outfit. By the way, the queen did say she went, but the queen did get a new BBL, right? That's why the body's tea. So the queen is now in the church and she is pushing her Christianity propaganda with the church people. And going back to what I wanted to enhance with this conversation is that victims become victimizers. T, you were saying that she was out here using dark energy. Do you think she's using like light energy at the church or what?
I feel like the church thing is again like so extreme. Like she's moving from one extreme to another. So I don't think it's genuine.
It's
It's
exactly
big.
victims becoming victimizers, where you know what the people want and you know how to sell it to them because you've been there
Yes,
before.
because you are selling tickets for
Ex-
this church service.
Exactly. So I was like, for me, I just feel like Gogo Skoteni is an opportunist, and she knows people, black people, are desperate for something to come and rescue them from their lives, and she can join Islam next week, and she will be able to sell it because she knows exactly who she's talking to because she's been there before. She knows exactly what the people are wanting. They are looking for a savior, honey. It's People are looking for a savior, like literally, and that's why people like Gogos Koteni make it. Do you believe people use like spirits to do these things to people? By the way, this has nothing to do with Gogos Koteni. It's a different conversation. like like they
Dark
would say like
energy.
major one, they are part of like these people that go to East Africa and they get these spirits and then they take them into the church. That's why all these people are passive. That's why all these people give them their money. That's why all these people eat this grass, drink these alcohol, eat these snakes, and do all these funny things in the church.
At this point, I wouldn't see it past them.
Me too. Anyway, that's what I wanted to speak about with the lady, that the people who are going to perpetuate oppression when it comes to the black people are people like you. So you think who's going to victimize you? It's the same people, which is why you have Pastor Mboro, allegedly, Pastor Zondo, allegedly, Major One, allegedly, and all of these people, Gogos Koteni, victimizing people. Anyway, just to round it off, so I wanted to say, growing up, my parents used to actually do the same thing. Like literally every month we would be going to that person, going to that person, going to that church, going to that church, St. John's, ngapa na ngapa. Like literally my whole life, I was moved from this church to that church to that traditional healer to that traditional healer. And when I was like writing this episode down, and literally this is at the end, like right now, and I was like, this is reminding me of my parents. This is reminding me of my parents because it was them. They had these lives. Both my parents were born during apartheid, and both of them were subjected to extreme black trauma because my dad worked in the mines and he never wanted to speak about that experience. The only thing my dad ever said about the mines was F Cyril Ramaphosa. That's the only thing he said. My mom was born as an orphan because her mother died giving birth to her. So they had their own internal trauma. My dad was, his father was a polygamist, and her mom was part of a group of women, and she was unhappy about the treatment. She decided to leave. So both my parents had like family trauma. And then on top of the family trauma that they had external trauma, which was informed by the apartheid government. And then when freedom came, they moved to Cape Town, which is around 1993. And they were trying to navigate themselves. My dad was already an alcoholic at that time, heavy too. And my mom, I don't know what my mom was doing, but she later on became very entrenched in the church. But during that time, we went from all these different traditional healers. So we even went to Mangonde, guys, like literally, like I swear to God, we were everywhere. And I was like, my parents were looking for something. They were looking for something to help them out of their trauma. And because they didn't have these words that we have now, anxiety, depression, what other words, psychologists at the back, all of these words that tell us how we're feeling, and we can go to a psychologist, we can go to a doctor. They pacified by moving from one religion to the next, one religion to the next, and none of it worked. My mom, by the end of it, my dad was still going to his traditional people because my dad was very African traditional. He never went to church. Even if when we had the church at home, he never showed up. My mom moved into extreme religion, into these fake prophets, because she used to ask me for money. I was like, girl, I'm not giving you 2,000 Rand to go send a picture. Are you kidding me? This is a joke. These were traumatized people. They were looking for a way out. And at the time, there were no resources to help them out. And I was like, I'm going to dedicate this episode to my parents because it's them who I'm talking about here. It really is them. And instead of moving from one religion extreme to the next, sit with yourself, read my book. Okay, I'm not trying to plug my book. read psychology books, try to understand your history. One of the things that helped me when I was evolving myself out of a trauma-based life into a more balanced version of myself, it was exactly that. My parents' story. I was like, okay, so my dad traumatized me this way by being an unavailable person. He couldn't because he didn't have a father. What was he going to do? Who was teaching him about being emotionally available? My mom's dream was to have a family. Who was I to tell her she can't be with the man she chose? So my parents were traumatized. When I was doing my own healing, I had to look at my past and was like, these are people who are traumatized. So in order for me to heal myself, I need to look at the past instead of pacifying, because before 2018, I was also pacifying with alcohol. So this is the episode for all South Africans who are going through something. Black people are traumatized just by our design, and we are traumatized within our families, and we are traumatized by the external world. And what we need to do is we need to organize ourselves. We need to do better for ourselves and for our next generation, and not be fooled by these fake prophets, not be fooled by these fake pastors, these fake churches that only want to take more and more out of our souls and leave us more in destitute. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much. I'll see you in May. Mental Health Mom. Thank you, T at the back.
Bye. Brr.
Oh, comment, subscribe, tell your
Y'all
friends.
have
Tell
no
your
choice.
friends.
They have no choice.
With that said, we have no information to give to the masses.